It is Monday night. I want to welcome each and every one of you to the High Strangeness here with Roderick Martin. I got a wonderful guest here with you tonight. My guy, we're going to be talking about this spaceship stuff. So y'all get ready and let's put this thing together. Anyway, I hope you had a great weekend. And so I'm going to bring him into the conversation here in just a few moments. But once again, we're going to be talking about some great stuff, bringing together Project B.L.A.C.K, as I promised. And so if you want to share this video and get some other people here with us tonight, that'll be cool as well. And if you're here for the first time, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And so I'm going to bring in my guy here and make an introduction to him. And so definitely you guys want to getting in on this conversation tonight. And I may open up the phone lines if you have some questions for him. We may do that as well as maybe you can jump up on stage with us and talk directly to Mr. Haynes here. Okay, so anyway, I'm going to, since he's going to be here a lot, and one of the things is kind of give you the introduction. And I'll talk about him a little bit, but in the meantime, you're going to hear us go over a few things so you can understand who we have here among us today, and as well as some of the projects and directions, some things that we're going to be doing together that I think is outstanding, and especially for those of you who just understand there might be some other stuff out there that we need to go find, especially in the galaxy, things that we need to look for. And sometimes we call it the black planet. And most people say, well, does it exist, period? Well, I don't know. I think it does. I think we can go out and find some stuff. But anyway, I got my guy here, Dr. Doug Haynes, here with us from Blue Ridge Nebula Star Lines. And I'll give you a little bit, and I'll actually give him to kind of give some background on some stuff here, because I don't want to mess it up. I really don't, but I'll take us through the journey of this conversation. But I will say that I'm just really excited to have him here, and we'll make some announcements of some things later on down in the show. So first of all, Doug, how's it going?
Hey, nice, brother Roderick. How you doing, man?
I'm doing okay, man. We're doing all right. We're here. There's so much to talk about, and definitely, like I said, just glad to have you here with us as well, as we're going to get into some deep things about spaceships, and some of your work is flying saucers and flying cars and the background. And like I said, there is so much. I have a stack of stuff that we can be talking about you and your family, and I think it just won't do enough justice to try to cover all of that in a few minutes of introduction. But over time, because we're going to be doing weekly stuff, we're going to be doing things with Project B.L.A.C.K and some introduction. So I think fair enough that we'll talk about some of this stuff, but let's just lay it all out to them over time. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's great. There's so much that's been covered in the media on me, electronic and
Yep.
newspaper and whatever, so I can see why you got so much there. But I know we're just getting started on our relationship. And I want to thank you, bro, for inviting me in on your world. I respect you and your people, what you guys are doing, and I'm so excited to be part of what you guys are doing.
Oh man, it is great. It is great having you here as well. We got a full chat in here tonight. So basically, yeah, so you can say hello to a whole bunch of people, and more people will be jumping in with us. Guys, what we're going to be going through is this man here, just give you a quick synopsis, contacted me, and he says, Roderick, I've been hearing about Project B.L.A.C.K, and I want to really take this thing to a next level. And my question was, how will we do that? And once we got to the conversation and start talking and looking into his background of aerospace is what I want to say, and having an FAA certification airlines, a Black-owned airlines, and in the history that he has in his father and model planes, and of course models turned into bigger things, right? That's where they all began. And just knowing that he has the background. And then also, how do we bring younger people into the fray of this? And And he just says, Roderick, we have to do something big. I want to help you with Project Black. Of course, y'all remember Samuel was here, and he referenced that there could be some black planet out there, and not that I have not heard that before. And so Dr. Haynes and I just start sitting down and saying, you know what, let's put something together. This could be 50-year plan. Maybe we not here for all of that, but it continues with other people. And he says, Roderick, let's build a spaceship. And at first I was like, my Scooby-Doo. But after talking with him and the technology and all of these things, you know, I'm just excited. And so, like I said, I want to go through at some point your family history. And I just put this on the desk for people. This is not just, this is stuff. These are newspaper articles. These are, and fair enough, I didn't even know about all this stuff, and I should have. Right? I should have been keeping up. And so let's start with this first. Tell us a little bit about your family history and bring us all the way back up to you today with Blue Ridge Nebula Starlines.
All right. Thanks, bro. Yeah, it's amazing. You know, I've been around for 50 years plus in the media here in Colorado, primarily, a little national, a little international stuff. And you don't hear about it. Sometimes you'll do a search for Black Airlines, and my airlines, which is called Blue Ridge Airlines, back in 95, 96, doesn't pop up. And, you know, the reasons for that not being the case, you know, are out there, and there could be a variety of perspectives on it. But I would say me, myself, doing the real life FAA, FCC, AST certification aspect of trying to bring the real spaceships and airliners to you and Project Black starts with my dad. When he was a kid, you know, 7, 8, 9 years old, he was really good with his hands, and he was in a wood shop. And I remember he told me the story. He passed away a couple of years ago, and I was able to get articles on him before he passed away out there in the media. And Spectrum magazine here in Colorado did a wonderful layout on some of the stuff me and my brother in California did on him. But he was in the wood shop, and being a minority back in the day, they wouldn't let him have any tools in his hand. So he had to do all the sanding by hand, you know, hand sanding. And they wouldn't let him build hardly anything, you know, using the sanders and the cutters and blase, blase. So he got good, better and better, because he was very intelligent anyway at building stuff. And then one of the friends of his in the class, the white guys, asked him to help build a wooden model airplane and do the sanding for it. So my dad did all the heavy lifting work, and they got this model built up, just a solid, you know, wings, wooden aircraft, nothing that would fly, no balsa wood, nothing lightweight, just something you put on your desk as a model. And it came out great, but my dad, he just fell in love with the project. And then the military had what was called Full Fighters Research Program, where the citizens of America were taught to identify the actual configuration of enemy aircraft, so that if we did see an airplane flying overhead, we could call in and, you know, report to the military. Oh, they're coming to get us, right? Here we are in Colorado. So I imagine if a fighter made it this far in, there's a whole lot of other people that might have seen them and probably would have called in. But anyway, they were teaching people to do that, inviting regular citizens to be part of this program. And they needed more of these mock-up aircraft built so that they could show society, in our case, Coloradoans, what an enemy aircraft profile looks like. So that's when my dad got in building what they call scale wooden models. He was invited to help the wood shop class and the shop teacher build a few of these things. And again, he was limited to hand sanding and did all the heavy work in that area, but he contributed to them building a variety of these things. But he got the love of building model airplane scale models. And so he went to the hobby shop and said, hey, look, let's take this to another level. And I want to build, you know, something that's going to fly. So he was able to purchase his milk money products out there, and he got his first wooden balsa wood airplane, kind of a wind up. And he told me he put it together and it never flew. He didn't know what he was doing, had no mentors helping him out, but he got it all together and wound it up and released it and went nowhere but straight in the ground. But that didn't stop him. You know, he wasn't down to one bit. So he went back and got another one and talked to them hobby shop people, got a little guidance on, what was wrong, probably the trims and things of that nature. But he got his next one to fly, his wind up, and
Mhm.
that was it, Roger. He was so happy, and he was 8 or 9 by then, and trying to move into junior high school. So he kept building these wind ups, getting better and better. Then he started doing his own reversion of what the aircraft should look like, and it was doing well, and he was doing pretty good. He was pretty proud of himself and trying to move on. Then he decided, let's take it to the next level. So they have what's called free flight back in the day. And of course, we're telling his age and mine that I even know about it. But what free flight was is you put a gas motor on one of these wind ups, make it a little bit bigger, and you launch it, with the engine running, but you put a timer on it so that it would run for 5, 6 minutes. Maybe the fuel supply would take it another 7 or 8 minutes, but the back end of it would pop up with this timer. First, it was just a burning string rope that would pop a rubber band that would pull up what's called the horizontal stabilizer. But anyway, it would pop up, and that would cause the craft to come back down. So you got this thing you threw in the air. It's doing a bunch of circles above you. It's climbing higher and higher. And boom, this timer says, all right, time to come back down. And that's when he got into motorized models. And he was building more and more of those. And then he decided to go to a contest uh, with the locals boys to see how well he could compete. And so he took his model and he launched it along with everybody else. And it was all about endurance flying. So everybody's models took off and they, flew straight ahead to different distances that were being measured. But they all, ran out of fuel and power within a couple of minutes. And my dad just kept going. It was going up in circles, but it kept going and going and going 10, 15 minutes. And then finally it comes back down and it lands right at his feet. So clearly he's thinking, I won the contest, endurance. I beat everybody, by 10, 11, 12 minutes at least. But the judges came out and they measured from his feet to the wings and told him, you went nowhere with this aircraft. And everybody got trophies but him. And of course, he was bummed out. Yeah. And he said, this is not going to work. So let me see what I can do to change my focus of my hobby building and get some straight and narrow flying craft. So he went home and he was trying to get his brothers and his cousins in on it. And we were one of the early largest family of blacks growing up in the Jewish community in Denver, Colorado. So he was trying to bring in his family and friends and build a little private group around here of young black men to get involved with this stuff. And most of them weren't interested or younger than him. But they did support him a little bit. And so he started building what was called control line. Now, the difference between pre-flight and control line is that you launch this aircraft, but it's tied onto some wires onto your hand. So you're slinging this thing in a circle. It's flying in a circle, a few feet away from you, and you're in the middle and you're controlling this thing, but you're spinning in circles, keeping up with it. And then you can keep your eye on it and control it. But it's flying pretty much at any altitude or attitude you're looking for, as long as it's taut on the wires. So now this was working for him because now he could control how long it would fly, how high, and then where it would land. And it worked out for him. And so he said, let's go back to the competition and see how well I do. So he's in the competition. He's doing control line flying, and everybody else is doing what's called RC flying, which is radio control. So he's out here with his prize models. He liked a lot of high wing aircraft. Didn't do a lot of scale stuff, but he did a little bit of it. But anyway, so he's out here flying his craft, and it's doing loops and all kind of things, and balloon bursts, rat races, whatever. These are different type of competitions you can do with control lines. Everybody else are flying RCs, and these RCs are going way out there to no man's land and back, and people are just holding a box, and as they touch the box, they would control the aircraft. And because RC stands for radio control, the airplane's going out there quite a distance from you, just like they have today. We can go down Radio Shack or somewhere and buy these RC boats and things of that nature. So at the end of the contest, they're told him the same story. He thought he did well and he thought he won. And they came back and said, well, your aircraft did not fly far enough. It just stood on a piece of wire going in a circle with you. So once again, he lost the contest, and they all got their trophies and walked away. And the guy's like, wow, it happened to me again. I missed the point of it all. So he goes back home and he said, I'm going to change to RC aircraft myself. And so he moved down from control line, and he started building RCs, and Hobby Shop was helping him out quite a bit through all these endeavors, supporting him, helping him get the right equipment and things of that nature. So he got into RC. It was pretty expensive. And right about then, he was getting married to my mom. We puts us right around the early 50s. So he had to find a way to deal with his up and coming family and at the same time afford his hobby. So what he decided to do was take all his children that were going to be born over throughout the 50s, and there were 5 of us that were yet to come, and he would have us all involved with model aircraft, and that way he would nurture us, teach us, the science of aviation and aeronautics, and at the same time be able to keep his hobby going. And believe it or not, it worked. He brought my mom into the concept, and she's like, okay, let's see if this works out. And so we all grew up watching him build free flights and control lines and RC aircraft and boats and battleships, you name it. He took us through the whole gamut. And so my oldest brother, Elmer, was 4 years older than I was. So he was able to kind of keep track of what my dad was doing through a cognitive base. He was a little bit more sharper than the rest of us because he was older. And then the twins a bit ahead of me, Dwayne and Daryl, 2 years ahead of me, they were also able to kind of keep up with it all. And I didn't know what was going on. So they all ended up picking the different wing dimensions of the aircraft as their, we call it the family personality. My oldest brother was really into the Stuka aircraft in Germany. And Roger, what that looks like is kind of a gull wing, like a bird, where when the wing leaves the fuselage, it's angled down for a few feet and then it angles straight out. So you kind of look like a gull flying around. So my brother had a wonderful looking gull wing aircraft that was a German built design called a Stuka. And people can look that up if you need to look up the Stuka, and you'll see what I mean by the gull wing. And then the twins took the Delta wing, which is the shape of a military jet, especially ones in the old days, and the trapezoid, which is a standard trapezoid shape in geometrics, but on the wing of an airplane. So when I came along, everything was taken. My dad had the bi-wing. He had a beautiful beach bi-wing aircraft control line, black and white, that he would fly all the time. And man, we all loved that aircraft. So I had to pick the round wing. And so that was going to be my sibling rivalry banner, if you will, not knowing that there wasn't a round wing aircraft flying per se. Some of them built. You had the Zimmerman, Dr. Zimmerman had designed a round wing. Germans did it, but it's not ideal aerodynamic shape airplane.
And when we say round wing, we're talking flying saucers type, right?
Yeah, that's what it ended up in, right? Basically, we all know that flying saucers /
How about that right there?
Aircraft. What was that?
I put a picture up. Can you see it?
Oh yeah, there we go. Yeah, that's a picture of the one that I built. That was the first one that I got flying. And the Germans came up with a little bit of that idea of the rotating wings. And we all believe they had jet engines powering those wings that that spin in a circle along the wire, but we don't know for sure, and we don't know what the Germans actually did with their disc. But that's what I ended up actually building. I went on, in terms of that picture, to start building real aircraft. I became a certified pilot, certified mechanic. I actually was the youngest pilot mechanic in the tri-state region. I ended up going to a school called Spartan School of Aeronautics, which is located in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I was so young when I went there, came out around 74, 75. At the age of 17 and 18, I was their first successful Black graduate of the MP school. And so that's when, I realized this aviation prodigy thing was working for me. So I took my MP license, came back, enrolled in Metro State College, and started working on my pilot license. I actually had my pilot solo flight in Tulsa, but I started working on my advanced license, like the private, and moving up from there, the instrument to commercial, things of that nature, in terms of ground school instructors. So that worked out for me. And I took this round wing concept that I endorsed, and I spent the rest of my life trying to make this thing work. And what you just put up was a good example of what I finally got actually flying. I was able to get some to fly models to fly in the basement of our house, which was our aeronautic, the Haynes aeronautic shop, if you will. And then I began to scale them up to the man version. So as my brothers and dad went to the models, and suddenly there was an organization called the AMA, American Motor Aviation Association. He became a rock star in that because he was so good at building models. And they just did a real big salute to him a few years ago about his work. They were getting hit left and right about the lack of minorities in the model aviation industry. And just like me, he'd been around forever, but most people had never heard of him. And so when they discovered that my dad, Elmer Haynes Jr., was actually a Black man slash rock star in their folds, they put him out front saying, no, no, we're okay. We're legit. This is the Black community and they're part of it. Suddenly he became recognized, and now they hold him up as being a big historical figure. Well, all along he was building me up to be this superstar in aviation. So I started learning about the pieces of the aircraft, God, when I was 4, 5, 6 year old. The wings, flaps, empennage, undercarriage. Those were just second natures to me as I went through school. And whenever we had a show and tell at school, I would always go out and fly model airplanes or RCs as my tribute to the show and tell event. And so everybody in class knew way back when I was 7, 10, 12 that I was destined to be a pilot. So here I go in A&P school, getting my first FAA certified license, one of the first Blacks, one of the few Blacks. And then I went on to become a mechanic at Frontier Airlines and also Combs Gates Learjet. So I'm flying these jets, and I'm building these jets and moving up. And all along, I'm focused on this round wing design. So as I continue to grow in my career, I continue to find ways to get a real flying saucer to actually work in society. Now, a lot of people say, why a disc shape? Why a flying saucer shape? What's the advantage? And there's several advantages, but the biggest one is that when you're flying around, you can sway it to the left, sway it to the right, sway it backwards, and propel it forward. And you've got aerodynamics in all four directions. It also is the only geometric shape that you can take to outer space and rotate it, and it stays rotating in the plane of rotation that you initiated, and it produces gravity. So once I found out that the disc shape was well suited for gravity, then I was able to realize that all the shifts that I built were going to be self-gravity generating platforms. So once I got my airline certified with the FAA, I promised that the next step I would do is go into a space line, but the FAA had no jurisdiction over anybody flying to space. And I was the only one that was really pursuing that as a certified airline. So once the government figured out what direction they were going to go, they moved the certification of a space line, if you will, They really haven't endorsed space lines as a word, other than what I've been trying to do with them. But the concept of what Elon Musk is doing now in Virgin Galactic, flying to space, they moved that finally into the FAA department, and they called it AST, or is their aerospace technology area for flying to space. And so I was one of the first ones to ask the FAA to certify my paperwork to be able to get certified. And I was in a race what was called um, let's see, they call that X Prize. So when I joined an X Prize race, that is when Burt Rutan and about 27 other people, along with me around the world, were trying to be the first ones to fly to space and back. And the criteria of this competition is who could fly within, I think it was 30 days, twice to space without having to change much of the configuration of your original flight spaceship. And the reason why they did this was we all knew that the hardest part of getting to space is that first 50 miles. I mean, space is only 50 miles up, maybe 60, depending on what egghead is measuring space flight. So I got into this competition, and I was already flying my flying saucers. I already had my airline. Everybody else was doing the best they could to even get a rocket to fly. Virgin Galactic hadn't flown yet, so we were, shooing to do very well with the competition. You can read on the internet. We had some issues with them and ended up being asked to leave the competition, which was unfortunate, but we still continued with our development of our flying saucers. And of course, we started flying it outside the confines of the competition. And we, to this day, continue to work with the FAA AST department on getting the airline certified. I also wrote 5 books along the way. When I came out of my graduate degrees, I have 3 master degrees, 1 PhD. So while I was pursuing those endeavors and putting a book together, I decided let's put the whole airline platform in the book, publish it, so that other people can learn what I know. I've been a teacher all my life, so I wanted to always help, like you mentioned earlier, the youth out there. So I'm down for helping the youth uh, follow in my footsteps to actually get a real space line flying to orbit. So in my books, you can pick up, they already have a route system. I lay out, just like I did with my airline, how to get from here to there, what are the environmental conditions you'll find at the different locations. But I discovered that most of the planets out there you can't land on. Neptune, Uranus, Jupiter, uh, Saturn, they all are gaseous planets. And way down below the layers of the clouds, you finally get a solid surface, but it's not conducive to land on like a rocket. So what you end up having to do are go to the moons. So I started studying the various moons out there that are large enough for you to land on. And then that's where you run into your problem. Is anytime you get a moon size celestial object out there, you're dealing with the lack of gravity. So if you plan on flying to even a smaller planet like Mars, or let's say Venus, maybe even Mercury, you're going to have to deal with the lack of gravity, and there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, you can try to terraform a planet, small planet, or a moon, and maybe you could do that, but the gravity is going to kill you. Our bodies are built to sustain uh, the sensation of gravity, and if you don't do that, then our muscles get weak, our circulation, we get sinus problems that go up in our nose. All of the astronauts that spend a little time in space are affected by the lack of gravity almost forever. Their retina and their eyes are affected by it. So, fortunately, my flying saucers developed gravity. So, I realized that if I was going to put a space line together, and I was just going to upgrade my airline to a space line, I was going to have gravity. So I finally was able to do it. I figured out how you could have a gravity built flying saucer and a rotating space station and a route system. And you can actually fly a whole airline like system to the various moons, not the planets, and keep everybody healthy and alive. And once I put those pieces together, I realized that that's what we have to do, and that's the direction we need to go. So when you go back and look at where we're at today with the rockets going up and coming back, you can't spin them. You can't get them to make gravity, and which means we can't take society, if you will, to outer space. So once I put all this together, then I came up with the concept of third wave airlines, and that's where my books came from. So you can look those up and get those available. And they pretty much take you all the way from the beginning of rockets back in the Chinese days when they were doing firecrackers in the air and cannonballs and things of that nature. And then you extend that all the way to today. It tells you how to go through the first wave of the airlines, which was, in my opinion, the reciprocating engines. Second wave of airlines became the jets. And now here I'm leading the technology of the third wave airlines, which are dealing with things like exotic engines, which would include M drives, iron drive, things of that nature. And that's where the flying car comes in that you mentioned in the introduction. I'm putting together, and we've got the flying cars out there, which were my early 1970 prototypes for my flying saucers, like the one that you just showed. So it became a really nice, long, step by step, methodical path from my dad teaching me to do model airplanes all the way to where I'm at today with the first space line in the world.
And that's you in this picture right here, right?
Yeah, look at me doing one of the air show things. Got the kids out there and letting them all climb inside. I'm really big about the public getting a chance to get inside the flying saucers or whatever. Yep, there's another one there, and that was with the early versions of the flying saucers. And then I went backwards with the flying cars in size. That's a good look at the cockpit layout, and that's a car show. And since I was doing the flying cars, way back in the 70s and 80s, we were invited to do some stuff at the car shows. So it was nice to get some real FAA built stuff. And because I am a certified mechanic and pilot, everything I do is FAA certified. And so I end up leading the pack even today on a vertical takeoff and landing aircraft that you see now, like companies like Archer are trying to get going.
Now, my question is, let me start here first, folks, and bring people up into the moment. Share with them how do you and I connect and what vision that you see, and then I'm going to roll into that.
Okay. Well, I was watching one of your shows, and toward the end of the show, you talked about Project B.L.A.C.K, the concept of it. And the piece that you mentioned that caught my eye or ear, if you will, that you wanted the Black community, people of color, to also share their experiences of contactee. And I thought, that is so true. Just like me, you're so under recognized for what's happened out there around the world. It isn't just the white community that's been associated with contactees and things of that nature. You got Barney and Betty stories, a few here or there of some blacks that are involved with it. You had mentioned Tuskegee Airmen. Some of them actually saw some of the Full Fighter disc out there during World War II. But I started thinking, let's take it to the next level, because I'm really big about having people help us go forward. That's how you get things done. Is you, as a village, you move on. And so I gave you a call, and we were talking about what you're trying to do about getting people out there to express them. I said to myself, let's take it to the next level. Let's go to space and actually see what's out there. And if there's a connection to be made, then we'll be available to make that connection. And since I'm a real airline and I'm a real space line going through FAA AST certification, I let you know that we can actually make this happen, and it's not just pie in the sky.
Man, I tell you what, it's and when you called, I was just blown away because one of my wishes, and I have been talking about this quite some time, was to let's put this thing together, Project Black, the Black League of Alien Contact Knowledge. And again, it's for everybody. It's for all of us, no matter what race we are. But we have to focus on the Black community, which is disproportionately represented, as well as being reports. And, it's moving so fast on the back end now, with people partnering, want to do some things. I had a 2-hour conversation with a gentleman that African American that worked with the UAP task force, and he reached out and had another conversation Saturday. We had a meeting with some people that work with the NSA and DOD, Black folks reached out. We had a whole little mini conference. I had Nicole, who's in the chat, to jump in on there and just kind of listen to the conversations. And they're all supportive of what we were doing with Project Black. And I'm just like, okay. And then yesterday I spoke, and here's a picture. And now this is me sharing Project Black for all of this room. And it's not a Black person there, and everybody's white, but they was elated about the information, and they all eyes just lit up to say, wow, wait a minute. We never thought about how there's not a lot of stories. And I had one text me today. He said, you're right. He says, I went to go bag up what you said. He says, he texted me and he was like, man, what did he say? He goes, and I got all these texts. He says, sorry, I couldn't remind. He said, but your point is dead on from yesterday's meeting. He said, 100+ historic videos I on the cinema and but only 3 African Americans and one which was Betty and Barney Hill. And he was like, I had no clue, but you'll be surprised, because I would take some feedback. Oh, you're trying to make it racist. I'm like, no. Could you imagine how many stories and people and everything that's out there that we can bring it even more into collective? And then we got people like you who we can build spacecrafts, right? Mm-hmm. We can, and imagine now bringing it in, because I talk about this all the time. The new space economy is there. They're building space tourism. They're doing all of this stuff, but we're not in the frontier of leading in none of that stuff. We ain't even got companies out here talking about, I'm building sprockets for these crafts. You get what I'm saying? I'm like,
yes, yeah.
But yeah, we got us out here. We're focusing on some of this other stuff. And then I did a show about the 1961 Settlement Act that says whoever get to these other planets get 600 miles of stuff and land. And of course, I want to bring something you said. A lot of people don't understand that there is no FAA rules of transporting human cargoes or humans in a group to space. So everything is under cargo line. And you know that as well. So you're like, wait a minute, I'm going to develop a cargo line. But you're already said my designs will be able to take people. Mm-hmm. And it's one of these things. And so when we sat down and you're like, listen, not only am I going to partner with Project Black with you, I'm going to share this technology where you guys can have access to this. And we're going to go look while I'm building that cargo line, we'll simultaneously build something that we can go look for what Samuel, who was here a while back, talking about the theologian prophecy of the Black planet, because we know we come from other places. We know civilizations have up and left this planet. They're just gone. So there's not something that we don't think that is happening, but just for us to start the motion to begin the process. And then, as you and I talked about, where we're going to do seminars and different things and maybe get kids to get into this thing that want to be the next aerospace engineers and to take this thing to the next level. And I don't think a lot of people took Project Black to understand how significant it is going to be and it's becoming. And now it's like, okay, it's time for us to just pull this thing out. And so it's pretty interesting there. So let's do it like this. Now that we know that, and then you understand it, that there could be possibilities of planets and other galaxies and solar systems. Let's just, for sake of the audience, to say, what would we do first to start developing a spaceship?
I would say we do what we're doing. People of color, our history has been so strong. We've done so much in the area of aerospace science that's been hidden. or are not talked about. And we have an obligation to help this world move forward. I'm a Christian, so I don't believe the world's going to fall apart until Jesus, says it's falling apart and we move on. So I don't believe in the scare tactic of let's go to space before we destroy this world, or
Right.
we need to be a spacefaring two planet society in order to live together. But we have an obligation to help move society forward. Again, I use the word third wave airlines. If we talk about how society is going to its next wave of development, we have to contribute. And maybe some of our stuff's been hidden. Maybe we've been held back for one reason or another. But we have to get in there, roll our sleeves up, and say, look, we're going to march along with everybody else in developing and moving forward and getting things done. So I would say that we start coming together and talking. When people want to go to outer space, they're like, what can I do in space? And my answer is, what you do on Earth. Whatever you're good at here, we're going to need you in a space based society. So if you can clean floors here, we've got places in space that can, that's going to need cleaning, your expertise on how to do that stuff, all the way up to the most advanced rocket scientists helping us go forward. So I would say we start talking. We start joining different subgroups, and we start giving our expertise. I certainly want to hear from the people out there, no matter what the color is. And a lot of times when you say, black this, for instance, one of my initial slogans was Black owned airline when I first got certified in 95. A lot of people were offended by the idea of black owned airlines being racist, but it wasn't. It was a salute to the fact that we want to help too. We're intelligent, we're smart enough, we want to march alongside everybody else to get it done. And a lot of my white constituents helped me get certified. And if you look at the civil rights movement, same thing. White constituents helped us bring in the civil rights rules and regulations. So we have to work together, but we got to start talking. We got to start hosting seminars and people giving us ideas on how to build. I know how to build a flying saucer, but other people out here in the world know and have visions on how to build it better. And I'm all about, let's talk. Give me some ideas. Project Black is a perfect foundation where all people of all races can come together and start talking about how we do this. And because we are legitimate hardware that's actually flying out there, we take everything and put it directly into building right away instead of looking at 30 years down the road, 50 years down the road. No, we're headed to space within the next 4-5 years.
Yeah. I think a lot of people don't know how fast it is going when it comes down to this. And, I think of Jeff Bezos when he mentioned, the new space economy and industry is moving to space. And once again, as I reiterate what I just said, was that Morgan Stanley was telling all of their investors, make sure you get in space tourism, asteroid mining, space satellite systems, and the list goes on, and it's happening. And what I'm always have been observant to is that it's just not those conversations that's filtering down into our communities, which then will inspire the next generation of not the thing of saying, hey, I want to be an astronaut. Okay, that's cool. That's right up front. We can do that. We're talking building cities, moving civilizations. We're talking about, in a planet, a planetary species. We need to get off this planet, but we still want to stake that claim out there, right?
Yeah,
At some
yeah.
point. And so I think it's important to become part of those conversations. But if it doesn't filter down, even from the beginning of the tagline of Project Black, is just start the conversation. That is our tagline, and wherever that takes us is so significant and important. And to really try to convey that message out to the public and people. So I'm still, saying, okay, where's the groundwork? Maybe conversation to get people adapted to say, hey, listen, we there's life out there. Let's explore it. and I'm even, and maybe somebody will take this idea, but I'm like, you know what? Create a shirt. You know, if everybody's Christian, let's just start a curious Christian shirt. I just get
Yeah.
curious, right? You know,
Yeah.
whatever. But the whole point uh is not so much the drawback of it, but I have gotten attention because I will be flying in May to the McMinnis, Oregon UFO parade. That thing is huge, thousands and thousands of people. And when
Wow.
they wrote me and said, "Hey, we want you to be one of the speakers this year," and right there in bold says, "We want to hear about Project Black." I don't know how they heard about me, but I will say the phone call I got from a gentleman, and this was a great call. This gentleman, like I said, he works. I'm not going to tell his name or anything, but he, was former working with the UAP task force, along with some of the top names and people out there. And he's a brother, and was in the military, and clearance and all, still have it today. And he found me because he was having a problem with one of his phones. He called a company, and he's telling a company about this new app that he's developing, which I'll share with that in the next few days, where you can report UFO sightings and all of that. So we're going to support it. And he was like, and the lady said, "Oh, wait a minute. You need to call it. You need to check out this guy, Roderick Martin, whoever the company, right?" They said, "You need to go and find here, look him up, blah, blah, blah. And this guy not only would be somebody you need to tie into this app." So I'm like, wow, just knowing that there's people out there that know what I'm trying to accomplish, but at the same time promoting. And like I said, over the last week, just a lot of significant people, because that was one of my wishes, is we got to get connections, not to put people out there, but at the same time to know what's going on all across the board. And that section of Project Black was at some point was put to the side because I was like, we need the professional contacts, but that now is just coming in. And then once again with you, the mission of the big mission, because at this point, this is not something that's going to be overnight. This is going to be years of preparation, but planning, building, support, and then of course, as Project Black becomes incorporated, we're going to do a nonprofit side. We're going to do a corporation side where people could invest in this spaceship or stock in different stuff. And so, I don't, like I said, I'm gonna roll it out over time once all the legalities and stuff is covered. But this is not no fly by night project, so it's going to be around. So if we would, if and as we start the conversation, and if you wanted to point out of building a spacecraft, what part of this is the first thing to build? If you go into the mechanic side of, and why?
Yeah. Um, I would say where I'm at now, and that's why I'm so excited about offering our capability to you guys, because we've been flying saucers, we've been building man saucers for decades now. So it's
Mhm.
actually real. You know, you could touch it, you can get in it, you can fly it. So that immediately gives you that next dimension as you go out and talk to people. We plug them in. We get the kids back involved with it and the
Right.
engineering and take us to the next level. But I would say, since I like the idea of the third wave airlines, then you start there. You look at the existing airliners that are out there and the limitations. I mean, they're going below the speed of sound for a variety of reasons, mainly fuel burn.
Okay.
And they're only going 8 miles up again, so they don't stall out or the engines flame out. And you look at what they're doing. When we transitioned from the first wave airlines to the second wave airlines, we had to fly at higher altitude. So if you take the human body, much more beyond 10, 15, 20,000 feet, we can't breathe, and our circulation gets limited and we die. So if you're trying to fly an airliner 8 miles up instead of two or three, then you had to find a way to keep society alive inside the cabin. So what did we do? We came up with ways to increase the pressure, the cabin pressure in the aircraft. Now, if you're going to increase the cabin pressure in the aircraft enough to keep people breathing, at 40,000 feet with maybe an 8,000 foot, 5,000 foot environment, then you're going to have to strengthen the airframe. If you're going to strengthen the airframe, you're going to add weight. If you're going to add weight, now you're talking about the rocket equation. You're going to have to add power. If you add power, you're going to have to spend more money. So when you look at that transition that they finally made from the first wave to second airlines, they solved that problem. Now we're looking at what are we going to go to space and how do we do that? One of the most important things is gravity. You have to have gravity on board the spaceship. If you don't have gravity, you're killing everybody. They can go out there and sustain, and break records on how long you can live without gravity, but you're going to pay the price for that. NASA did some research on twins, and the one that was in space for a long duration of time may never return to his existing DNA makeup. So one of the first things you got to do, which I did solve, was make sure you have a space configuration that can produce gravity. So as you start to look at the people around the world who have done experiments with making gravity with like a centrifuge concept, and you bring those people into the conversation in the design, now you have a airframe that starts to build itself. And every time I build another flying saucer, I'm amazed on how it builds itself. Once you solve one problem and get the configuration down, you have the next one. Now, what I like the most, Brother Martin, is the fact that Star Trek got it right without even knowing they got it right. They've got a saucer shape that can produce the gravity, but then they have the main fuselage that can contain, let's say, thrust vectoring capabilities and gyros for stabilization for navigation. So I've adopted that basic profile. And the most important thing about the space Star Trek configuration is that the engines are behind the cabin. We didn't do that with the shuttles. And we saw what the catastrophic deficiency that developed because you had the fuel tank in front of the fuselage in the cabin. Well, I love the fact that, yep, I've got everything behind the cabin. In fact, you can separate the two, bring them back together as you need to in order to get things done in space. And all my videos that are out there on Blue Ridge Airlines and also Blue Ridge Nebula Starline YouTubes and DHOS 77, you can see how I separate the saucer, I bring it back together, depending on what mode of operation we're in. So I think that's where you start, bro, is the ideal of what do we need to do? Obviously, we need the cabin atmosphere. You can't go all oxygen. We saw what happened there. We killed astronauts and cosmonauts. But with the flying saucer, you have what's called saucernauts. And now the saucernauts are able to breathe with a nitrogen, oxygen, natural environment on board. That's important because you're going to be going to different space-based locations and facilities. And you can't have people going from oxygen to a nitrogen environment without having them do a transition sitting time frame. They need to be able to move from one to the other like you're walking from the terminal to the gateway. So once again, you're looking at the atmosphere or the environment inside the airframe. Well, the airlines already have that. Traditional second wave airlines, you just make sure that oxygen is there, the pressure is there, and away you go. But the thing that they don't have, once again, is the gravity. So the flying saucer solves that problem. So I think that's where you start, is what are the basic needs of the body? Because you don't want us to transform our bodies into an alien makeup and then conquer space. I hear those theories and they're well and good, but we didn't do that. In the first wave airlines going to the second wave airlines, and it's the airline's job is to take society from the second wave to the third wave without having to have them do a metamorphosis into another creature.
I think one of the things we could learn from is, although you look at some of the models that are being built today for spaceline or aircraft, they're like fixed wing, at some point, but the extraterrestrials somehow knew the flying saucer model worked. That's what they was flying and been flying for eons, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's something about that design that they feel that, of course, is best with space travel because that's the things that we will see all the time.
yeah.
Uh,
It's funny. Our blood vessels are round shaped, and so you have to stop and say, why is the round shape better flowing through a medium like our blood, rather than sickle cell or diamond shape, whatever along the way there. So you're right. These guys they've taken aeronautics to another level for centuries, if that's the case. So what is it about the disc shape that they decided on, and what we decided on as we transition to the third wave?
All right, we're halfway through our show tonight, and so let me give a shout out to one of our supporters here who support the channel here. 1 second. As y'all know, the greatness of Celeste. So you all make sure that you get out here and get her journals, okay? And we need to support her because I want to get her to 100 sales. All right, and so whoever is going to be that first 10 this month, let me know. Send me an email at contact@whythebigsecret.com and let's give you some special shout outs. But anyway, there is the link right there. You can get it on Amazon or you can go to her link tree. But again, get those journals, tuck those notes, get those things done out of your mind, out of your head into paper, and watch the magic happens. And so once again, y'all give her a shout out for supporting our channel and doing what we do. As we hear, if you just got here, we here with my guy, Dr. Doug Haynes. We're going to build a spacecraft for Project B.L.A.C.K. He's going to build a cargo line. So his company will be going public pretty soon, or going corporation over the years, where he's already there, but then you can invest in a lot of those things. So you hearing about stuff early that would be very prominent years from now, just because you plug in right here. And so where we're going to go with this part of this conversation, and once again, if any of you want to support the channel, you know how to do it. I did have it somewhere up on the screen. There you go, Project B.L.A.C.K. Cash App is at the top. You can, if you find any value tonight and you just want to support us, please do, because we do need your support at all times, right? Here's what I want to do, because we're going to be doing something on a weekly basis as we keep growing, and then we'll bring other people in this conversation with us. And as my intention is to bring more on the other level of side for Project B.L.A.C.K, our speakers, our collaborators, and different people with visions of the future. What are your thoughts when it comes down to, and I'm just taking us off to the side for a moment, what is happening with all this UFO disclosure? What's happening with the government or showing all these things? Or are they trying to say, hey, or somebody's trying to admit that they are here? But then we still got the fallback of the protection, the big secret keepers. And I know you keep a eye of this stuff because you want to go to space, right? And so how is all this playing into the point of the extraterrestrial existence to you? And why is it, this is a two-part question, why is it not filtering down to our community where it's the top of our conversations that extraterrestrials or aliens is out there?
Oh, wow, Brother Martin, that's got about five different directions I can take. Let me start off with what I know you heard, and I heard, and that was Von Braun once told his secretary that the last attempt whoever they are going to do is blame it on the ETs. They're
Mm.
going to say there's an ET attack, and then, of course, we'll all buy in money into a defense program to fight the ETs. If that is true, and Von Braun is to be respected and maybe even believed, then maybe some of the non-UFO, okay, we're getting away from the UFO and now we're talking about IEPs. Maybe that whole slogan, maybe that whole program, maybe the whole rebranding and the renaming is pointing in that direction. So if that is the case, and I don't know, then we have the UFOs that are out there and been out there for eons of time in those communities. And then we may have an additional uh, party out there that is trying to fly under the cover of what's happened in the past. When you look at the different UFO geologists like you are, there's a distinct difference between how a UFO, if you will, flies and how these new named saucers or tic tacs are
Just
flying.
pause right there for a minute. See, I tried to educate the audience about a week and a half ago, and I don't know if a lot of people really heard, but I said, y'all got to understand there is a distinct difference between a UAP and a UFO, and they know it. And although the UAP name has changed from aerial, this now it's unidentified anomalous phenomena,
Yeah.
it's changing because they know there's a category of other stuff out there. And when they do decide to use the word UFO again, they know that was alien driven. They know this, and that's what it was in the beginning. But since they got all of this other stuff that's flying around, these tic tacs and all of this, and so now they can't classify all of that as extraterrestrials or from outer space, which keeps the public at bay, right? Because now we can keep them confused by using the term UAP, unidentified. So, but the actual term UFO was actually connected to, they knew it was craft flown from other places by other beings. And I think when that word comes, they're going to bring that word up again. And I guarantee you, if there was some type of that invasion thing that they're talking about, they're going to call them UFOs.
Mhm.
And that's because they can't call them UAPs because the public won't buy into that to say it's unidentified aerial phenomena. So you can't tie that in. But when they bring that term back out, that's when it's going to hit. And
Wow.
but anyway, go ahead.
Well, I think that's man, right on, bro. You're always right on the mark. And you have to have a slogan with any successful program. And you're right, they're going to have to change that the acronym. They're going to have to go back to the UFO because we know that's been forever, and
Mm-hmm.
most of us know the history of it. It's in the Bible, the Quran, and all these other writings that come up over and over again. That stuff is out there in one form or another. So if they do try to go back and endorse that acronym because we all know it existed, I could see that. I can see them trying to tailgate on what's been here for centuries and then try to get us to buy in one way or another on what they want to do.
Yeah. It's just one of those things. I think it happens, is happening for us. And so another part of that question was your take on, since you have been in this thing and you're now got your eyes on the space, do you personally believe there's life out there? And if you had an opportunity, where would you go once this craft is built?
Okay. I remember as a kid, 8 years old. I grew up in Denver, Colorado. There was a YMCA open swimming pool on the north side of Denver, and everybody was pointing up to the sky, including my mother, and they were like UFO, UFO, and I didn't see anything. And to this day, I have never seen a UFO. I've never met an ET that I know of. So that's where I'm coming from. Is okay. Flying saucers work. I'm an aerospace scientist, PhD certified and degreed. So I know that flying saucers work. I've got one built, or ones, and they're working, and I know the advantage of them. If the ETs out there, if there are ETs, and maybe even societies that are out there, then I like for them to join us in UNISEC. Now, with that said, yeah, I believe there's probably life out there. If not, we might even put it out there recently by all the flights we've done to Mars and the other moons. And then we've got what would you call it? Maybe corrosion on the outside of our ships that are growing on the planet. So, if nothing else, we might have put life out there accidentally by contaminating other worlds.
Mm.
But if you look at how little of technology is needed in science to trigger life, and then you look at worlds being thousands and millions of years old, you stop and say, yeah, there's got to be something else out there or somebody else out there. So I end up saying in the final analysis, if not, we're going out there and eventually we'll be looking for us down the road.
And one of our people in the chat says Dr. Doug should be on the ET welcoming committee.
I'd love to. Wouldn't
Yeah.
that be great? You go out there and meet some people that are not from Earth with a positive attitude. Instead of trying to shoot them up, bang bang, we're like, hey, welcome. Let's walk hand in hand. So yeah, put me on a committee. I'm ready. Put me on any aerospace committee, and let's get this done the right way instead of just one dimensional.
Well, I think, for the most part that, you're right. We need to explore all avenues of what's going on. Someone else put in the chat says, what if the UFOs is man-made, and what would they call it? Seagray, what you have to remember is that when the term UFO was coming out back then, this was happening before the technology of us having the ability to fly like they were flying. So they couldn't have been man-made back then, especially in the 30s and 40s when we had the fixed wing. We didn't have jet engines until 1950,
40s,
right?
50s.
Yeah.
40s.
And so, but before then, we was having these craft. So that's why they call them that, and that's why the possibilities at that time could have been some extraterrestrial beings, or whether they could have been their drones. But at this point, this is why that association came at that point back in time. But now that we have moved up, and you got private contractors, and you got multinational corporations, they all are building their own technology. We have no clue of some of this stuff that's flying around, and this is why UAP came in, because there are not UFOs, but there are a bunch of stuff that we don't know. So they had to kind of put that distinction there. I think it is one of those deals.
Yeah, and I'm mention real quickly, I was talking to a young lady decades ago, and she was talking about why do you call your man-made crafts UFOs? That's supposed to be unidentified. And I told her, in the world of English articulation, you've got a term called connotative, and then you also have a term called denotative. So when you throw a word out there, that word would either be interpreted based on connotative terms, which is what society tends to say a word would be, or denotative, which would be the actual definition you find in a dictionary. So, for instance, when Michael Jackson sings a song on Bad, you're like, wait a minute, is it bad good or is bad bad? Well, if you look it up in the dictionary, that would be denotative term, then it's a bad thing. But if you look at it as what society utilizes the definition, then that's called connotative. So, with that said, you're talking about the UFO term. So, the definition in the dictionary might say, unidentified, but the connotative meaning that we utilize, gets all these other variations that you're talking about. So that's an also strange aspect of those acronyms that are coming down the pike.
That's well said, because the connotative side is we feel there's aliens in them versus everything.
Yeah.
I do. And
Yeah.
yeah, that is well said. All right. So let's go back a little bit to a couple of things. You and I talked about maybe getting some of the truth seekers community to come and do a demonstration of the new flying car project that we're working on. And even though we see some of these flying cars now still trying to do the same fixed wing style, so I'm just kind of jumping over into that right quick. You're still steadfast on doing it the UFO, not UFO, but the flying saucer style. Would that make a good style for passenger transportation for flying cars, which is going to be
Yeah,
around 3 years anyway.
yeah, I think so. Now, I believe in staying focused. You know, I use the term lately, laser focused on your projects. So the flying car that we developed in the 70s was just our flying saucer getting off the ground in the airframe, the chassis, the power plant developments. So when you have something that's flying and you're trying to stay on your path to building a disk uh, spaceship, then you have all these prototypes and you have the different versions or different levels of those along the way. So we just so happen to have these flying discs that hover, and that works off the same technology as you're now seeing a lot of these flying cars, if you will. And of course, if you look at the Jetson Mobile, that was a disc shaped car that George Jetson and the family were cruising in. So again, the big advantage of that is that it can move in four directions: forward, left, right, and back, using these engines that are coming out now, electrical drive engines. S- And that's going to be that extra dimension. If you can move traffic, your cars in airplanes, sideways, backwards, forward, in the air, you've got something. You revolutionize the movement of people in a big way. The only airframe that will continue to generate lift in all four directions is the disc shape. So as we move to the flying cars, if you will, we stay true to the George Jetson concept, first of all. But second of all, if you're hovering and you don't have a disc shape, I think you're wasting your concept because you're going to drift to the side. You're going to go forward. You're going to go backwards. So make it work. So we might as well start getting people acclimated to the new form of flying, which is a disc shape now, so that as we transition up to larger airframes and power plant platforms, they're ready to go and they're not afraid of flying saucers anymore. I mean, once we go out and feature fly to suborbit in a disc and we offer that product, uh, it's going to be something that most people are going to want to do, probably put on their bucket list.
Yeah, I talked about, you and I developing I guess it would be a RC flying saucer, to fly around and I would probably say make one about 3, 4, 5 feet. Now that would probably take a whole different level, but we'll probably get phone calls all day. I saw a UFO flying around. Oh, I saw. It'll just be so cool.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things to do it. Now, for some of the people that have children that are at their homes right now, and we want to introduce them to the space economy, where would they begin? And how do we also take them to where we're going to have a collision course with some of these kids at some of our future events, talking about aerospace as well as Project B.L.A.C.K?
Good thing. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm all down for taking somebody with me as I go over the hurdle of success. And the kids are a big part of that. That's why we do space camps and things of that nature. I would say, as far as the parents guiding the kids on getting ready for a space society, remember that whatever you do on this planet, you're going to do in space. So you don't have to go out and reconfigure your thinking or join a think tank in order to have an opportunity to go to space, because we're going to need everybody. We're going to need builders. We're going to need designers. We're going to need dreamers. So they don't have to do a lot other than open up the mind to the fact that, yeah, let's get ready to go to outer space in one aspect or another. Maybe you just want to travel to some moons out there, or maybe you want to homestead out there. Uh, so I don't think they're going to have to do much other than educate them on what space is. Now, we also have to remember space is only 50 miles up, maybe 60. And you're in what we call the certification level
So
of
that's
space.
not outer space, that's space.
Yeah, that's space. That's the actual designation of when you get your astronaut wings, if you will. If you can go, used to be 50 in case of the X-15 planes back in the day with the U.S. Air Force. Now some of the eggheads have pushed us up to 60 miles up. But when you're talking about 10 miles difference, and that's not a big issue if you have that kind of power plants kicking for you. But yeah, so we have to remember it's not that big of a jump as we're starting to master it now. So yeah, get your kids reading about space. History is important. If you know the history, then you know your future. So get them to look at some history of space and what's been done and what they want to do, and then get them drawing. Give them a piece of paper, have them start drawing out some of their ideals on what they want to do, and then maybe next step, turn it into cardboard cutouts, and then you start building right from there. That way, you're taking it from the thought realm into the earthly realm, and you're manifesting what you're dreaming of right away. And once you get them doing that, it's hands on, and then they're ready to go.
Now, I know in the chat a little bit, there was a couple of people stating that most of your flying cars are drone technology. And of course, that's where we are today. How do we move from that to where everything is drone technology with propellers, right? Multiple propellers to a propulsion that is flying these crafts. Because we know it exists, the UFOs are doing it, or whoever's driving those things.
Yeah. Well,
and
you're
how do we get from there to there?
Yeah, good question, bruh. I would say you get to the limit of the propeller, perfect the propeller, get it into a disc shape first, rather than what's coming out now. And of course, this is just the beginning, so you have your trial and error, market out there. But once you get to the maximum altitude of where a propeller could take you, that allows you to develop the aerospace network, because we've got to put a whole network flying in space. I mean, you can have your autopilot cars, which is so controversial, versus an autopilot airplane. We're all already using autopilot in the air, and we're comfortable with that as passengers. So that's leaps years ahead of trying to get auto cars. So if we skip or we supplement the auto car concept with the autopilot in the air and build that whole infrastructure around the flying drones and the flying cars, we have the foundation. Now, you're probably good for 20,000 feet, 15,000 feet in a propeller driven, let's call it a helicopter for now. So you're going to have to, once we get to that altitude in the aerospace structure, we're ready to change the power plant. And now we start looking at what's going to be the next power plant. My belief is the ion drive. So I perfected powerful ion drive engines, which use the typical ion particles, if you will, that are being expelled out of it to go to your next level of flight. So what my ships do is they take you about 10 to 15,000 feet for your first phase of flight. And then you kick it into exotic power plants. And then that takes you all the way up to what we call suborbit, if you will, or maybe the 50, 60 mile level. Now, once you're there, now you got to accelerate forward. So once you get to space, you don't have the drag of air molecules. So you fire off another engine that's going to allow you to accelerate out. And ion thrust doesn't have a lot of power to it, but the big thing about it is it's called continuous thrust. So if you continue to expel energy once you're in space, then you can eventually reach the speed of light, because you go faster and faster and faster each second. So I think that's what you do is you get your propeller-driven flying cars right now to develop their aerospace network around the world, and then you start with your next step, which would be exotic fuels power plants.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because again, you're looking at the technology. If they were not using propellers, then you'd have to have some type of jet propulsion around all of this and shoot it here, shoot it there. So and I guess all it can get pretty complicated really quick. And they're figuring it out, and in time we can figure it out. But if we start thinking about, people always say that the aliens are coming from our future. You ever heard that term? People say that?
Yeah, I've heard that.
What if just like the movie Terminator, with unintended consequences. That your development of the flying saucer is actually the future flying saucer that's coming back to visit us.
Oh, that's a deep concept, and then you talk about what are the laws when you do come to the past? Can you kill somebody? Can you take some money? What does that do? Does that kill you in the future? And now you're stuck in the past? That begins a crazy conundrum of what are we going to do next or what can we do? I'm not sure. I try to keep it simple and try to say, what are we going to do and what are we doing? And we are going to go to space. We're in space now. We're going to find an effective way to go there, everybody, without, harming the body. And then we're going to go further out in space. We're just going to take step one, step two, step three. And now, if we're talking about speed of travel, if you're going too fast in space and you hit a pebble out there, let's say, it's going to destroy your ship. So now you have to talk about how fast can we really go? Are we now looking at wormholes or are we looking at dimensional travel? So at some point, again, we're looking at the third wave airlines right now, going maybe Mach 50, 50 times the speed of sound, I think is the level we need to get to in the third wave airline platform. That's moving pretty quick to run into something. If you're going to go beyond that, maybe fourth wave airlines, if you will, you might be looking at dimensional travel, and then that might get you close to future, moving forward and coming back. Uh,
Wow. All right. So, those of you watching in the chat, if you have a question for Dr. Haynes, if you want to post it in the chat, I'll try to get as much of those and see if he can answer those. And if you want to support the channel and thank you those who are considering doing that on this grateful night tonight, you can do that as well. I was thinking about opening the phone lines, maybe take a few calls. You got time for that as well?
yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, and maybe some of you can call in, ask your question as well. If you think you want me to open up the phone lines, put it in the chat that you say open the phone lines, or put your question in the chat, and I will, convey this over and put it on the screen, and we can tackle some of those. In the meantime, for those of you who are here for the first time, make sure y'all smash that like button, and definitely share the comments and stuff, or the channel, the video, because we got a lot more coming. We're gonna start doing some stuff here very frequently with Dr. Haynes, as well as other people that's going to be coming forward with Project B.L.A.C.K is what we're doing. And I'm just excited about it all, pretty much. But if you got a question, like I said, put in the chat. I know we got a delay, so I'll wait a little second or two for some of you to post it up, and then I'll put the number up. So let me see about if I connect this thing. If it connects, sometimes it doesn't. But I'll put the number on the screen if one of you want to call in and see what we're dealing with. Hang on here. Boom. All right, so
there it is.
There's our number on the screen. If any of you want to take a moment to, drop a call, you're welcome to go ahead and do that. It'll take a second for me to bring you into the show, and we'll definitely do that as well. But in the meantime, when do you think one of these days, and what time of year would it be good to get a group of truth seekers together, and we can let some of them be the test on the flying car?
I would say come on out and start enjoying the flying car in about 6 months, 6 to 7 months. So probably the
Okay.
middle of next year, once it warms up, you can come on out and experience that, and then we'll be sharing that through Project B.L.A.C.K, where we're picking up the potential buyers or the people that want to utilize it for traveling.
Are you from someone? I just put it on the screen. Ask him if he's familiar with Jack Safferty's work. or Sarfat
N-
TD or
No, I'm
okay.
not. Give me a tip. I might have heard of his work. What's it based on?
Yeah. So Jair put that in the chat. You heard him. So we can kind of go from there. But anyway, if you want to call in, the number is on the screen. If not, I'll take it down here a little bit and continue our conversation for about another 30 minutes, and we'll get him on out of here to do some other stuff. But we're gonna have him back next week too. But I'll have some other people with us where we are going to discuss a few things from there. But the number's on the screen, 937 our team. Or if you want and got a question, you want to put it in the chat, you can go ahead and do that. Well, in the meantime, one of the things that I know you've been around this aerospace for quite some time. Have you ran into? I know we talked about opposition a little earlier, but what about some of your ideas and stuff? Have you seen some of your ideas? Maybe others are using it, or some things that you'd be like, wow, because I know you've shared spaces with some of these people that are out there, or people that probably working for some of these companies.
Yeah, I see it all the time, Brother Martin. The biggest compliment to what you're doing is when somebody tries to copy you. And
Mm.
then, of course, they try to claim that they came up with the idea originally. So I see it all the time. One example, when I first got into the industry, I was working for Combs Learjet. And when I started thinking about putting the airline together, I thought, well, let's take one of these Learjets, supersize it. And then that'd be the size of a Gulfstream 2 back in the day, back in the 74, 75, and make it a catch up airline, which means you would fly smaller passengers along the larger airlines to different routes. And that's back in the 70s. And it took all the way until the 90s before the airlines finally came up to what they call RJ jets, regional jets. And then they were, of course, supplementing larger jets with the smaller ones. And that made me realize I'm usually 50 years ahead of the aviation energy as a prodigy. And that's just one example. Right now, we've got the flying saucers, 50, 60 years ahead of anybody else trying to really incorporate it into their airlines. And we're doing it now. So we'll look down, another decade or two, and finally, somebody will endorse that and claim it was their first idea. And because Black people tend not to be recognized or held out, especially in science, technology, or in my case, the aerospace field. Again, I'm one of the few Black airlines in America that were certified, and most people don't even know it. It's not on the internet. You can look at it at Wikipedia. So you don't get that exposure. So that allows other people the opportunity to say, I'm going to use his ideal in my platform, and I'm going to call it I was the first one to come up with the idea. And so when you look at the competitions I've been in the past, like the X Prize, where we were flying beyond Burt Rutan's capability, as well as everybody else. Now, and we were asked to leave because we were talking about commercializing that platform. Now we look at people like SpaceX that are trying to commercialize the platform, and or it was their original idea when it wasn't. So I've seen a lot of that along the way. Am I disheartened about it? No. God's on the throne, and He's guiding us along, and we're being recognized just like tonight. Thank God on your platform, we're talking about what I've been doing for 50 years, and now those others that tried to say it was their ideal have to explain that no, it really wasn't our ideal. But we wish him well. So yeah, I see that all the time, but I consider it a compliment because that means I did it right 50 years ago. Um, it's just that other people didn't get on the boat until now.
You ever heard anything called quantum tunneling? Someone says, as if a spacecraft will ever be able to do quantum tunneling. I ain't never heard of quantum.
I haven't, but I understand quantum theory. And tunneling, I'm gonna think might be almost like a wormhole. And then we have the concept of where you make a bubble around your ship.
Mm.
and you're sucking in the wave of light, you're pushing it out, and then you're moving within the bubble. So you're not really moving the ship per se. I think it might be near that platform. I like the concept because if we're going to start doing light speed, warp drive, or even fractions of it, again, you're going to run into dark matter out there, particles, and they'll
Mm.
crack your ship, the smithereens, if you will. So something's going to have to be done about how speed flight, and we'll get there. The Wright brothers once said you can never fly an airplane over the oceans, and they were the ones that supposedly built the first airplane. So you can't put a limit on the fact that we will be going those type of speeds. And you might have to find a tunnel. You might have to jump from a black hole to a white hole and back. And maybe that's a clean path through those two celestial objects. So it might be in that category. If it is, I think it might be a way to go.
Another conversation they're having in the chat to ask you about Dr. Stephen Greer, but they was talking about would he allow what uh tech that will allow Earth to have free energy, and Nicole said maybe we're talking about electrogravity tech.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I seen a lot of Stephen Greer's work, and I respect him for it, especially disclosure. When we talk about free energy, everything, believe it or not, Brother Martin, comes back to the magnet. If you get a magnet spinning and then you put, wire around it like a coil, you've made electricity. And there's a lot of ways to get a magnet to spin. You can use, geothermal energy, running water, through something, attach that to a magnet spinning, which becomes your generator. So most of the energy production comes from a magnet rotating and finding different ways to drive that. Solar wind could drive a gear that turns a magnet, you're on your way. So a lot of that could be free energy. Now, if you look at the magnets without moving them, they still produce a magnetic field. And some people call it the Ethernet, some of them don't, but it still is producing a magnetic field. The electrons are still moving around it. Eli and all those things are still working. So you got your free energy. Tesla, played around with some of that ideal, and then of course the industry wanted to stay status quo in order to make a profit on what they were doing. So you have your opposition, but I do think there's ways and methods to get free energy working. And if we figure it out, that's going to cut all our electrical bills. We cut
Mm.
our electrical bills and spend money on something else.
Wow. Yeah. I think it's, you know, I don't think we will probably do it because it would just affect the entire economy as a whole.
Hmm.
And they're going to protect that by all means necessary.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
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 because, coal, oil, and all that stuff is a global commodity. And in spite of all the stuff that's going on today, they still bombing and then buying oil from each other anyway.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're right. But when I look at that concept, of the people with the money not wanting to give up their market, then I look at the timeline. And so if we extend that out, let's say 100 years, their
Hmm.
product may run dry. And as it starts to dry up, they're either going to have to migrate, to another platform, or we'll all endorse as consumers another platform. So I think they'll
Mm.
play out, eventually, and we'll move on to, the next step or the next product. So I
I didn't
always
think
think
about
that,
that. That the
yeah, I
reservoir,
was trying to look at that positive side of it.
yeah, that is going to happen anyway
Yeah.
over time.
Look at the electrical car. Nikolai Tesla pretty much invented the first electrical car. And I like to tell this story because it's not out there enough. And when he got that car to work, there was a big crowd. He flew, he drove his car in front of everybody. Then he took his little magic box out of it. Nobody knows what it was. But he told the crowd, he said, this will never work. And then he went home that year and he built a flying saucer. And he said, this is the way to fly, not what the Wright brothers just did, or the flying aircraft. So he even knew that the electrical car was not going to be the answer to society. So if you look at right now what's going on in the marketplace, we're seeing a lot of the car dealers backing off on the support of electrical car because they're realizing it's not going to work. Society isn't endorsing it, and it's not going to be the big answer to our go green, quest that we're on. So I think that's a good example of
Yeah, if you think
what do
about
we.
it. Yeah, keep going. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. No, I was going to say that's an example of how we as society dictate the next level and not the money people. I mean, they do short term, but in the long run, it's you know, cons- you got to please the consumer.
Yeah, it makes sense because if you think about, uh, even though they're trying to introduce electric cars, but then there's the push for the flying car, which will be totally, well, I don't know, but then what will be the energy source for a flying car? It's going to be electricity anyway, right? But would it use
Yeah,
less because it's
yeah,
flying?
yeah. You're doing a
No,
different world. My flying
battery.
cars
Yeah.
produce their own energy as they're in the air. So you don't need the batteries. You don't need a lot of batteries. You certainly can get away from the lithium battery concept and go with standard batteries, which we have available, readily available anyway. So again, I think as we stick with the propeller-driven flying cars right now at lower altitude, that helps us get that into society, get people feeling comfortable with people flying over their head, and that is safe and manageable. And then you move on to another source of power. And that's naturally going to happen because you have the marketplace, and each time somebody comes out with a better mousetrap, the crowd goes that direction. So I think the thing is to continue to let the electrical car market undercut and be reduced as the flying electrical aircraft takes over, and then we move on for there. So I think we're going to see a jump from the regular cars now to the flying cars.
Hmm. Yeah, that is something that I think is happening. Yeah, and I can see it because they're pushing for it. I can only imagine just
Yeah.
getting up one morning, walking outside, and vroom, 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 like the Jetsons
Yeah,
in
getting
all.
that Escalade, that flying Escalade.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, and be like, okay, let me get one of those, and so it's phenomenal to not phenomenal. That I'm using the wrong words. So let me scratch that out of my grammar here. But it's incredible to see here and to witness uh, the technology evolution or how it's radically changing so quickly.
Yeah.
Um, and that's always been my dream of financial success is to just be able to go to that Las Vegas electronics show every year and buy whatever's new, right? Just whatever's new technology, whatever's going on, just want to be up on it, or go to the one over in China and watch all the new stuff and just gadgets and walking, and so it's just been kind of really incredible when it comes down to this. But I just think that I don't know. I don't know. I just think we're moving pretty quickly, and that change of producing flying vehicles, would it be economical for the masses? But like you said, if they want to sell it to the masses, they'll find a way to do it. You
Yeah.
know,
Right.
and pretty
Well,
much,
when you look at the flying car and the attributes it has over the electrical car, and I advertise this. I've been advertising this for a decade and a half. You're sitting there with the electrical car in heavy traffic. You're going nowhere.
yeah.
But if you have the flying car, now you got something. Now you really solved the problem
So
of
would be no
traffic
traffic
jams.
in the air? No, no
Yeah,
traffic.
yeah. You won't have the traffic in the air because people are flying rather than behind each other, one behind each other, like we do now with airliners. We'll be flying next to each other, so you'll be able to move masses across the airspace without the traffic jams, let alone splitting them up in altitudes. Right now 1,000 feet or below is reserved for people and not airplanes over cities. So you've got that airspace carved out already where you can sneak those flying cars in there, and they're doing something. If you look at the autopilot, I mentioned that earlier, the car being driven by autopilot is such a dangerous concept, and we can't perfect it. But if we're in the air, even 10 feet in the air, it's not a problem to have an autopilot flying you around. So that also gives you economic and a scientific jump over the electrical car. And then you go back and you look at the batteries. You got to have a lightweight platform in the air. So that automatically gets you working on the science of batteries, the number of batteries, the weight of batteries, and then it helps you jump or leapfrog over the regular electrical car. So all those advantages of just the word flying car pushes society to the next true level of transportation. And like you said, people love the next newest thing. And if it works and if it's safe, then you're really gonna get behind that jump level. So I can see why it's growing so quickly and how it's going to take over. And and we're only in that market because that's one of the testing prototypes to the next level of flying beyond 20,000 feet. So you might as well make a profit off of the prototypes you built to test at the lower altitudes.
So how can I start my own drone delivery company with your technology?
Very easy. The first thing is to have the technology. And certainly we've got that now where you can take your product, whatever it's going to be, and get it in the air and let it navigate, to wherever the customers are ordering it. So all you got to do is find a market that you want to be in. Maybe you want to sell pizzas. Maybe you want to deliver medicine out to the farmers. Maybe you want to deliver barbecue to your different constituents and customers. So all you have to do is take the existing technology and plug it into your market, and you're on your way.
But you have the technology if I want to start the company, though, right?
Right. Mhm. And,
Hmm.
and so once the technology is there, then you can make your dream come true. But that's the key, waiting for the technology to be there. Yes. And we've got that.
Wow. I mean, because you see it all the time. I think FedEx or Amazon. I was out somewhere in some rural area. This was probably about a year or so ago. I was doing like ride share or something, and it was way out there. And next thing you know, I looked at this Amazon drone delivering packages to somebody's house, dropped it off in
Wow.
their front yard, and took off. I was like,
Yes.
"What?"
Way cool.
Yeah. So I'm like, "Let me get in
Yeah.
on that thing." And then I've seen some where they, uh, deliver stuff out in rural areas, but they use more of a fixed wing drone style, and they catapult it up into the air and then let it go. It was kind of cool how they would do it. And then when it
Wow.
comes back, it just flies back in. And so I just thought that was pretty phenomenal of
Yeah.
just like, man, we're advancing
Yeah.
so freaking much. All right.
Yeah.
So let's get back to Project Black with Blue Ridge, and just uh, kind of recap a little bit the synergy that we're developing so people can understand what you and I planning to do.
Okay. Well, what got me excited about it, as I mentioned earlier, was you said, let's bring in the people of color's uh, connection to the ongoing dialogue. In fact, the dialogue might be getting a little, I'm going to use the word prosthetic in or dull because you're looking for new dimensions and the same old stories are being
Yep.
played over and over.
Yep.
And as you just simply say, has anybody else got a story to tell that brings in, the people of color and other people that haven't been touched? And I can, just imagine how many more stories are out there that can enrich the ongoing dialogue. And so when you mentioned that, I thought, yeah, that's important to, get our people out there because they have great ideals. We're great inventors and we have a great history. So I came in and said, all right, let's look at making it the next step. Not only are we talking about, what you experienced and what you saw, let's actually let you get in the ships, go to space, and if the ETs are out there, let's go meet them, or let's become the ETs for another world or our world down the line. So that's why I'm so excited to come with you and be able to add that dimension of FAA certified real time hands on projects right now instead of saying, well, we should build something in 50 years. No, we've been building for decades. We already have them here. Let's just give them to the Project Black community, and then Project Black community will give us back more ideals on the next thing to build. I mean, we've got a Star Trek Enterprise here that we're building, so let's just share it and get new ideals on how to go to the next level.
Yeah. So so what y'all hearing is really a wonderful thing for the future. So that we're just not playing with this. Even me on the backside was like, okay, where can I fit in my family's legacy? Okay, do you want to build some parts for a spacecraft? Because you got to build it. We got to have something. Do you want to start a company for this? Or do you crowdsource for this? Or do other people may say, hey, let's put my, funding, let's crowdsource some stuff, whatever we want to do. And it's all in the thoughts right now of just figuring out uh, point A to point B, especially financially, of course. But the other part of that, it just got me dreaming, Doc. It got me dreaming. It got me sitting back going like, man, this is a real possibility. And then every now and then, that negativity hits like, you can't build a spaceship. I'm going, well, I'm not building a spaceship, but those young minds do. And he can lead this process. We got technology. You do your part and facilitate it, Roderick. Get some people listening, one person, or you might just get 2 or 3 people. It's one of those things, and I think it's good for us to get involved in these conversations, become a reality into the space race at some point, and you just never know tomorrow. And of course, we just may get our own alien hookup that comes in and say, nah, y'all need to tweak this a little bit, be out there. It's a real thing, and
I think it's our obligation. We as people of color have to do our part to help move the aerospace industry, the society into the next level. And a lot of us are trying, and we're hitting roadblocks. Some of us are not, but we can't be afraid anymore. And you have the platform now where we can come together and work to get this to happen with the white community as well. And that's why I just love what your project is about. It's like, let's go now and make it happen. And then I'm able to bring you the real time FAA certified part of it, where we have our airlines going to space for the people, and not just for ourselves.
Man, I want to do something, get the children involved. Maybe I got some good people. It's in our chat. They work with different school kids and different stuff. And maybe we can put something together. And I wouldn't go elementary. I would go more junior high, high school, and have them to design a future craft and what it should look like. I think that would be like the bomb,
That'd be great.
You
Yeah,
smile.
start a competition.
Yeah. Yeah, start some kind of competition. Maybe get some donors to donate some scholarship fund for whoever the winner is. But get them the next generation of space travel and just the ideas of what things should look like in the future from our youngsters, and empower them. Because like I said, I want us to focus on, I want the people that are selling real estate, start gearing people to understand that there is a provision out there. Whoever can colonize a place for 10 years, get the claim. So I already figure Elon Musk and them was going to say, you know what? I'm going to take 30 of my buddies and we're going to go, and they all map out 600 square miles, because that's what the government will give them, or they can have, long as they say that they have allegiance to the United States for security, right? Because there's no laws out there. So you literally can go own your own world, make up your own laws, and do what you want. The only problem is you're not going to have any armed force security unless you pledge allegiance to the United States, right? And so, but I still think that we should get out there as a collective, not just us, but all of the people that's listening in our financial world, and grab us some real estate in the space, grab an asteroid, because all of that is going to be money, for people to live. And it's just something to look at. And I think that we're going to wake up one day, and then all of a sudden the planet is going to be owned by some private corporation.
Yeah.
The next
Right.
planet, right?
Yeah.
And it just goes from there.
Yeah. And that's what I like about what you're doing. And that's why I wanted to give you what we've got. We've had decades of real technology flying,
Mhm.
and you're dreaming about getting this done. And now you actually have a way to get it done. It's not a dream anymore. It's been manifested. It's
So what are your thoughts?
manifested.
I see in the chat, and they've been having this conversation. So we have Jair says we need to focus on production and automation on Earth before we try to get off Earth. But what do you think about that? Because I'll let you answer and then I'll give my opinion. But I hear what they're saying. Everybody's saying taking care of Mother Earth. How do we stop human, whatever the word I'm trying to look for, that wants to get off the planet? How do we,
That's a good question, Brother Martin. When I started trying to answer why go to space, I
Yeah.
started looking at some of the typical answers. But here's where it's at, I believe. If we did start as single cell animals back in the day, in this primordial soup, uh, they had to expand because the soup, the pond where these single cell animals were at, was drying up. So they had to split into two different colonies in order to survive. And that became the plant world, and that became the animal world. That's how that split. And that's when it split. But they both were able to come out of this pond, if you will, and start to survive on the landmass. Then the same thing happened when we started going from the jungles into the agricultural land, because they were starting to dry up and burn up. And we decided, yep, let's go to a new space. So let's learn how to live on the plains of Earth. So we learned farming and whatever. So I said the only reason why we move on as a society in human history into a new space is because our existing environment is drying up. So if you look at what we're doing now, we're setting limits on how many children you can have. We're setting limits on how much land you can farm. So you're naturally are being pushed into a wider space, in this case, outer space. And that's when I came up with the term new space. So it's a natural progression. When we went from the soup to the original landmass, we started eating each other up first because
Yeah.
we ran out of food. And then we said, let's stop that and let's go to the new space. That's what, in order to survive as a species. So we're doing the same thing now. Instead of limiting the number of births you can have and other things, push on into the new space, the outer space. So this idea of let's perfect Mother Earth, sure, let's protect it, but we've got to move on to the next spot because that's what we do. Be fruitful and multiply. So let's continue to be fruitful. Let's continue to multiply, and let's go to a new space that can house this development.
Yeah, I think it's not a way to go for us in the next generation. Especially, let's just say if I was a parent of the idea that, again, I don't want to worry about the colonization. I don't want to worry about those things. And I understand that. I understand we do need to focus on the problems at hand. But on the other side of that, like you just said, if the herd is moving in a certain direction, and the herd as a collective is evolving, creating new ways of survival as it moves down this new place, it's those ones that are left behind is the problem, right?
Yeah.
Because if they don't evolve, or if there's no protection, or there's no, and I'm not saying the earth is not going to be here if people leave, what I'm saying is just the technological advancements that come along with the societal growth. If we don't embrace it and get our skin in the game, and that ain't just black people. I'm talking wherever level we are within this equation of people and in the economy side, then once again, the future is already known to you. If you ain't in the game or not going to put a player in the game, you have no dog in the fight. Then it's still a control process for those who are forward thinkers, and therefore don't let those people outthink what we do. We just got to be in both sides of the fence, right?
Right.
And if I'm saying that, the way I'm trying to bring it out is that I think we on both sides of the fence, as much as we want to protect Mother Earth where we are, but we also got to understand that life has a way. We can't stop it. You can't stop this colonization or interplanetary species. It's happening. It's been happening. It's been a dream since humans looked up in caveman days to the stars and said, I want to know what's up there. How do I get there? Whether it's trying to figure out a way to climb trees. How do I get to the top of that tree? And next thing you know, they invented a ladder. It's just so many. We can't stop that. And I don't think as parents we can stop our children from dreaming that high. And so therefore we have to support it at all. Girl from the Bay. So how do we get in the game? All right. So she just joined our conversation. So she hadn't been here for the other hour. We are in the game. We're in the game. From there. So we got about a couple of more minutes, but yet we're going to do some weekly stuff or bi-weekly conversations. And so where do we go from here? I think that, we just need to start our awareness campaign on my end. I think we need to bring some people, we'll have some open conversations where I have other Project B.L.A.C. people and start bringing more of that up front. And before I say that, let me stop. If you are in Dallas, listen to me. If y'all got cousins, friends, brothers, family, I don't care who they are. If they in Dallas area, they got to hit that email, contact@whythebigsecret.com, because I'm doing some in-house interviews that I want to do right here in the studio, over here in this corner or this wall over there. And I need some people that have any type of experience. I don't care what it is. High strangeness, whatever it is. It can be UFOs, paranormal, any kind of experience, whether they think they've been here before, whatever. And if you're listening to me, make contact ASAP. I'm trying to get about 10 people here in the next couple of weeks where I can do some videos with them here in the studio. Okay. So just want to throw that out there as well. Let me look in the chat real quick. Research and development. As Nicole said, we need scientists and engineers and out-of-the-box thinkers willing to donate their time. Okay. Yeah, that works too. And girlfriend will get braces, right? But the average person doesn't have the money. Yeah, I don't think it's the money is out there. I think at this point, I think if you get the right ideas, and then the people with the money is going to try to invest in it. They're built that way.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
They're here. They wake up in the morning going, mirror, mirror on a wall. Who else got the best idea of them all? I don't know. Just make it up. But they're asking for those things. And I think at this point, you cannot have a great idea and nobody gets behind it these days. If it's a great idea and if it's revolutionary, they will get behind it. You hear it all the time. So any words you want to leave before we go? Anything?
Yeah. First of all, I want to reiterate, thank you for setting up this platform. Thank you for being open to the spirits guiding you to this platform where everybody now is going to have a chance to help us move forward in the space travel now, not down the road. So we're giving the technology to Project B.L.A.C. We need people to get involved with the Project
Did y'all
B.L.A.C.
hear that? He said we're going to give the technology to Project B.L.A.C. He is sharing that with us wholeheartedly. and we're going to partner up and do some great stuff. Keep going. I just wanted them to make sure they heard that.
Yeah, that's very important. And it's all about you. You the man. You put this together, and we're praying for you, and we got your back. So keep
Yeah.
on keeping on, man. Yeah, let's get this done.
No, I appreciate you, man. And it's the dream. It's a, I'm reorganizing my life. As you know, I've been dealing with a few medical things on the back end, and really learning content creation, and oftentimes, once again, I always ask, hey, if you guys want to support the channel, and and one of my things is to develop the things, and they're working out where people just come here. They don't have to hear me asking for support. They can do what they want. But when we start building this spacecraft, you guys get in on that now. Come on. And pretty much, but you guys are going to see him again. My goal is to now start taking us on a journey of conversations, whether he's here, we decided maybe weekly or maybe bi-weekly for his time. And then we're just going to keep stacking more people on top of this. So you may see 5 people next week with him. You may see whatever. Now this conversation has now begun. And now we're going to do documentation. And that means let's get to work, because documentation be conversation any day of the week. And so we will be doing some great things. Nicole says, I'm not a scientist, but I'm good on the back with project management. And so we already got that. Nicole has been with us from a long time. And then we got Girl from the Bay. So we got some efficient people that support the channel, Doc. And I think we're going to do some great things. We have, I don't think she's here tonight, Body Electric Supplement, but she works with children. So she does the curriculum all the time. And so she can kind of engage us with some things for younger kids to get involved in what we're doing. Because I always wanted to create Project STARS, and that was an acronym for using stargazing to achieve real space conversations, and get companies to donate us telescopes and things. Not to say, okay, we want these kids to be astronauts. No, because I don't think you have to be an astronaut now to go to space. And we know that. Not to say that cosmonauts and astronauts are not going to be important, because they're scientists. There are all kinds of stuff in one. But as you can see, they're taking, Michael Strahan them up to the edge of space in minutes, right? Mm-hmm. So, and I don't think the working people have to say, oh, I'm gonna have to have a lot of money to go in space. No. If they build something, they will get the workers there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They will find a way to get the workers and other people there. They're going to make that thing harmonize. So don't think it's going to be outside the box from there. So once again, just say this for the last time, last call. If you want to support the show, I got my prayer beads and my mala out, and it's 108 of them. And one of these beads is for one of y'all. When I start meditating tonight, I go through every last one of these. And it's going to say that one of you, and hope it reach your mind, that you support the show tonight in your sleep. And then when I wake up in the morning, I'll be, oh, damn, it worked. So let's do it, man. Let's do it. All I appreciate you. And you and I have developed our friendship on the back end. And like I said, we'll get more and more into your background. Once I get the overhead camera up, then I can probably get these slides and put them in, because they're going to learn about all your family history over the next several months of whatever. So they're going to be in this thing. Right. Let me look real quick. We got a chat here. Someone says, I have an educational coloring book series for kids and adults, currently working on the outer space book. Just published the moon book, Laugh Out Loud. I have an alien and UFO in the works, but deciding how to base those on facts. Okay, so see, everybody's doing some stuff that we can put some together.
And it's so basic, it's not way out there. Like I said, anything you do on Earth, you can do in space. So come on, people, let's get this done. Support Project B.L.A.C.K. Let's come together and give this momentum full life and get involved.
All right. So you hang on a minute, Doc, and I'll close them out. Just you stay in the thing, and you and I'll chat in just a second. So I'm gonna bring
Okay,
you
bro.
off and close out, but just hang on a minute. All right, y'all. Y'all have heard everything that we were talking about tonight, and so first of all, again, let's give Dr. Haynes some kudos, right, for all the achievements and things. But we're going to put him out there. We're going to share all his information because people need to know what he has done and what he's about to do, and what we're all going to do together, because it's important. I didn't know a lot about him at all. But now I go through all the accolades of him, his family, and being the prodigy and all of these things. It's important for us to latch on as a community of truth seekers to do what we do. And so it has been a plum, pleasing pleasure as well as a privilege tonight talking with you as always. And as I tell each and every one of you, it's about love. You know I love you. And to my haters, as always, if you can hate me, not know me, I can love you without ever meeting you. But I have now realized, if you're here every week, and I do get a lot of same people texting or putting some bad stuff every week, then I realized, you haters, you're a fan. You're really a fan. You really are. And so I love you for that. I really do. So outside of that, let's do this thing. We'll be back in a few days at the end of the week. And then after that, I'm going to be taking, except for Mondays with him, I'm going to be taking a few weeks off to develop some new content or what the things we're doing. So I need you all to spare those words, get these people to the office so we can do some stuff. And I hope you learned some stuff tonight. I hope it's educational for you, and at the same time, inspirational for you as well. And with that being said, I love you guys. Good night.